Okay, this is my presentation on conflict management for organizational behaviors. Conflict defined, this is just a definition that I pulled off the internet, so it's nothing specifically or detailed, but it's a serious disagreement or argument, typically a protracted one. I agree and disagree with this. I think that conflict can grow into a serious disagreement or argument. However, I think most conflict starts as like a simple little disagreement and nothing super serious. The types of conflict in the workplace that I have found are task conflict, relationship conflict, and value conflict. Tasking conflict is a disagreement on how a task should be done, which I feel like is probably most common in different types of workplaces. Relationship conflict is a disagreement between people or a difference of opinion. Again, that's just common conflict. And then value conflict has more to do with ethical standards, which I feel like is more of a more serious type of conflict. A personal example for me, I work at Starbucks and have for 2 years now. A personal example, I feel like, at least in our store, and I feel like with anybody's on the smaller scale of things, we deal with tasking conflict a lot, meaning that we just simply disagree on what ways to do things or how to do things in a certain manner. Even though they all come out to the same result, I feel like that a lot of times it's supervisor to supervisor that are running things differently, or barista to barista, or vice versa. Usually this type of conflict can be resolved just by looking at standards, and that's why I feel like tasking conflict isn't as serious of a conflict as like a value conflict would be with ethical standards. I feel like we see ethical standards in Starbucks usually on the bigger scale of things with corporate side of things, but that's not usually something that we have to deal with in everyday life. 5 ways to manage conflict. They include collaboration, compromise, avoidance, accommodating, and competitive. Collaboration is defined as just simply working with people involved to try to produce the best solution. So I feel like another example at Starbucks, we have quarterly meetings with our whole store, and we kind of go over things that we can improve on, things that we can do better on, and I feel like this is probably our most use of conflict management is the collaboration method, meaning that we're just kind of, yes, our boss and store manager is telling us what needs to change, but we're collaborating on the best way to do that for everyone. Compromise is each person gives up something that contributes towards conflict resolution. So in this case, again, with my workplace, it would be like something as simple as just being right about something and looking up a standard and then just sticking to that standard, and then both of you gave up, that kind of egotistic mindset to complete the task at hand. Avoidant is seen as a passive approach used when the issue will eventually resolve itself. I see this a lot too. Usually, conflict, of course, on the smaller scale of things, it's not sometimes all the time appropriate, but most of the time, if it's something simple or something that's not a big deal to either of you, usually it will just resolve with time. And I feel like this, conflict like this usually, again, isn't that big of a conflict, and it's best if it is kind of just left alone. Again, I feel like it's not common, but often, when it does happen, it can be beneficial to just move on from the situation. And then the accommodation is, this style is most effective when work relationships are valued more than the conflict itself. So I can kind of give a personal example of this recently too. I have been dealing, not to get a little personal, but I've been dealing with a lot of mental health issues and just kind of struggling a little bit. And my store manager obviously was like, "You're not your best self right now. How could we get you to your best self?" So everybody else around you isn't feeling stuck or isn't feeling like they're, I don't know how to say it, like reactive from what's going on with you. So that kind of feel like is an accommodation type of method with conflict management, meaning like, how can we get you to where you need to be so in the bigger picture you can be successful, if that makes any sense. I kind of was stumped on that one. And then the competing method is more aggressional type of conflict. It's about who takes the firmest stance. So usually when this happens, it's kind of just a head-to-head type of thing, and whoever takes the firmer stance kind of just, that's the other person is just kind of like, fine, and lets it go. That's a kind of, I feel like competing and the accommodation method kind of go together as one, because you're accommodating to that person, but you're competing for who has the best kind of answer or solution to the problem. A goer, of course, it is a little bit more aggressive, but can be useful if you feel something is, like, if you take a strong stance on something and if you don't give up on it and you think that's the best way to go, then yeah, I think, yes, take a firm stance on it, but don't try to change anybody else or try to come about it in a off-putting or oh no, man, trying to say, like, an off-putting type of way. And then my final thoughts are just that conflict is an everyday occurrence and it happens every single day in the workplace. It's kind of unavoidable, of course. It's bound to happen anytime, anywhere, any place. The only thing that you can do in these types of situations is resolve it as soon as it comes up, or find a way to talk through it or walk through it with your coworkers or with anyone around you, rather than just letting it sit and boil up over time, because that's when we get into really, really bad types of conflicts, which are usually unresolvable and leave scars and affect everybody else around them. So with these methods and kind of just understanding these types of conflicts, I feel like it can be beneficial for all workplaces to kind of work through these and understand each of these individually, to try to work together to come up with best solutions to the best solutions for their own workplace. And they're definitely help bring my understanding a little bit more. I feel like I am a more of avoidant type of conflict person, meaning that, like, I don't really care that much, and I probably should, but I usually will just kind of give up and let the other person kind of have at it. Obviously, if they feel like the firmest stance, then I'm fine with that. Let's do it. Let's just get it over with and get the job done, which I feel like is the kind of mindset that a lot of people have. But I feel like just from doing this class, I feel like I can be better at taking a stance and collaborating more rather than just giving up and, letting other people take the reins. I want to be a leader in that way, and that's something that I'm definitely going to work on.